Another beautiful question has come in. I'm not sure if this is from a male or a female or anything other. So I'm just going to go off the cuff here. I am in a long-term relationship and I am struggling to find a happy rhythm for our sex life. I'm only wanting sex 1 week a month, and often our dates don't fall on that week. This makes us more best friends than lovers. Why don't I want sex more often? And how can I change my drive to suit our dates? Sorry about my reading. Wow, there is so much here that I want to unpack and be curious about before I would give you a deep and meaningful answer. But let's go off the cuff without me knowing some of this information. One of the first things that instantly came to my mind as I was reading that, you're talking about having 1 week a month where you feel sexually open for what I'm assuming is penetrative sex. So actually, this is about cycles, and this is about your personal rhythm, and it's about your body and how it responds to each moment of the month. So again, I'm assuming a lot here because there isn't a lot of information for me to go on. But so I would say there's a big piece here around your cycles and around knowing your cycles and knowing what kind of intimacy and connection and play and pleasure you need during your cycle. It's also important, therefore, to really understand the variety of emotion, the variety of sensation, the variety of desire, need and safety and excitement and pushing boundaries. It's important to understand how that manifests during your cycle and at what stage in life are you at? Are you in the maiden, the mother, or the crone? If you're a female, I've assumed you are a female because of the way it's written. It's quite a feminine-led writing, but please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm really up for understanding and giving a different answer. The second big thing that comes up for me instantly is what does relationship mean to you? What does it mean to your partner? If relationship at the core foundation is based on penetrative sex or more sexual energy and experiences together, then I can understand where this question may be coming from. But actually, relationship is so much more than that. And if the relationships that I know of, including my own, were based on how much penetrative sex we're having, then of course I would say most of us are just mates. Because it's a myth to think that all month long penetrative sex is what we want, what we desire, what we need, and what we want to give and receive. So we need to really understand, what does relationship mean to us? What's that expression? So having a really amazing conversation with your partner about the value of the relationship. What's the value here? What do we bring to each other? What does relationship mean for us? And each aspect of relationship, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the physical side, the sexual side, the financial side, the time commitment side, all of it. Let's really have these conversations, and then we can start to really place appropriately the value on that 1 week a month when you might be up for it. Maybe it's not a problem. Now, I do hear you. You said that often your drive doesn't fall on the dates that you have within that month. So I can imagine that this can be quite frustrating because, of course, you want to have some sexual play together at that time. So this is a whole other thing to explore. Some questions I have about your partner. When does your partner feel most alive for sexual play, for sexual connection? What kind of play do you engage with? Actually, is this something that we can extend so play can become part of all of the dates that you have? But how, why, when, where is the difference? So, for example, in my relationship right now, we're not having penetrative sex, and we haven't for weeks and weeks because neither of us desire that in each other. But we're playful and we're having a lot of intimacy and we're really close, but we're not actually experiencing penetrative sex at the moment. Why? Because we're really tuning in to what each other needs and wants and desires, and we need and want and desire something different. But that doesn't impact our relationship in a negative way, and it doesn't mean me being lesser, and it doesn't mean that he is lesser. In fact, we're greater for the truth sharing and tuning into our needs and tuning into our desires and being more creative. So often I have found when lovers come to me, if the lovers are not very creative because they may not have had the experience or the ideas or the opportunity to explore more of a creative side of their sexuality, this is the time to really start talking about that and opening up some opportunities to think, what else could we do that would feel nurturing, sexy, playful, pushing my boundaries, whatever it is that comes up for you, to get away from that thinking that it's got to be like this every time we have a date. This isn't going to serve you, your body, your needs, the time of the month, your hormonal cycle, or theirs. I think often what I like to do is just to really inquire with my partner what's alive in us right now. So I don't plan ahead what we're going to be doing or getting up to, because that won't be authentic to really how my body wants to open and how my body wants to explore, because it's about the energy between us. It's about what else is happening in our life that we come with. It's about what's going on for my partner and what is in the nervous system between us. It's so complex in a way, but actually it's also very simple. It's just about being in the moment, being fully present and coming into connection with each other and exploring your sexual energy together in all of the ways that that can be expressed. Penetration can be part of that and beautifully part of that, but it also really doesn't have to be just as satisfying. And because you're in a long distance relationship, I appreciate that there are frustrations with that, especially if you're in the week after your flow. I don't know if you're the same as me, but in the week after my flow, I am up for it. I am up for it in every which way. I feel just horny and high. I'm at my most creative and I want to swing from the chandeliers. And so if there was no one there that I was able to play with in a way that I want to, then I would find that quite frustrating. So we find other ways to play. Have you and your partner ever considered doing anything like this? Looking at each other on the phone or sending each other voice messages, or I don't know, there's all kinds of ideas. Have you ever thought about kinking it up a little bit? Of course, the most important thing with that is safety and creating safety. So I don't know if this is a new partnership or a long-term partnership, but having a foundation of safety is absolutely fundamental and foundational. It's paramount that you go into any kind of play with each other feeling utterly safe, because then you're going to open and then you're going to have more fun. So what ways can you get a little bit more creative and risky maybe? And if it goes wrong, just laugh at yourself. The amount of times I've tried things and I've just thought, actually, I'm really not into this. And you just laugh it off. So what? What if we try again another way, another time? And life rolls on. So it's about looking at your situation, not for its limitations, but for what's opportunity is there. What's the invitation, not the limitation. Like I say, there was so much in this particular question that I would want to know much more about to really deeply help you. But I hope that that gives you something. And of course, if you want to know more, just get in touch with us and I will love to have a one-to-one with you. I think I'm stirred listening to this. Because I can relate to it on a personal level. My husband and I both have ADHD. Both of us have different expressions of that. But both of us can relate to this question for sure. Okay. So I'm just connecting into the pain that I've seen in my husband as as much as I've seen it in myself, but more so with him. So it's a really beautiful and vulnerable question, and I'm really grateful for it, and I'm grateful to come into an answer with you. So I'm just going to take a moment and feel myself and come back to you. Whew, okay. So there's lots of different things that are coming up for me now as I am really thinking and feeling into this. How are you meeting people? Like, are you online? One of the things about being on an online like dating profile is the good thing about that is the bio, the blurb. I always say that if there's no bio, move on. If people haven't got the strength of character and the vulnerability within them to write about themselves, to help give you clarity which brings safety, this person is not advanced enough in their human development for you. So in respect, I'm asking you about your blurb, and are you showing yourself vulnerably and openly and speaking up? Because in that strength of showing yourself, you are going to be able to connect to the right people much more often than not. So I'm just going to assume that you are meeting people online. From what you've read, it sounds like that. If you are meeting people through apps, then be super duper clear on your bio, on your write-up, about your preferences, your needs, your situation, not from a place of desperation, from a place of being empowered. You are then permissioning your reader to be empowered to consider their needs and desires, and you're far more likely to find someone who is also potentially neurodiverse, knows exactly what you're talking about, and instantly feels much safer to connect with you. This immediately takes the pressure off both of you, and you can choose that middle ground meeting place that will just about tick enough boxes for you both to be okay. Then from that position, you've immediately got that conversation starter. You can check in with her or him as soon, or they, them, as soon as you meet in, say, a park or a quieter pub garden or a hike on the hill. Who knows where it might be, but as soon as you meet, you have this conversation starter. Does this feel good for you? How are you feeling right now? You know, you can go straight into what I consider quite a nice middle depth of layer that, as I know from my neurodiversity, and I know it from that of my partner and many clients and friends, to actually not have to deal with that top layer small talk, we would far better thrive to go straight into something a little bit more connecting, open, vulnerable, and clear. The other thing I have to remind my partner about often is to bring the joy in and to laugh at ourselves. The more that we can bring a lightness and a humour to these challenges that we have in meeting new people and starting those moments in the early days, the more the humour moves things. And I'm not suggesting that it won't be difficult or painful potentially, but actually bringing the humour along and allowing that, it lightens everything up and it just gives us a little bit of a higher vibe. And I often have to remind him and myself to keep the vibe a bit higher before we go into that kind of like more focused and hyper-focused way of being, which is nothing wrong with that. It's a beautiful expression, but let's lighten it up. And then I think about having like a toolbox. You know, I love my toolbox of practices and places and spaces and people that I just pull out as and when I need them. I've got a huge toolbox now that I have in my life, for my life. And in your toolbox can be all the places and spaces that you know are your amazing, good, okay, bearable, avoid at all costs. So you become more empowered to make suggestions, to lead, to say yes, no, and you get rid of this sensation of, you know, what if it's too noisy? What if there's too much stimulation? What if I don't like, for me, it's the smells and the lighting might be, oh, blah, blah. What if? actually, I'm going to go really empowered. I've checked out these places and I know. And something that I'm working on with someone right at the moment is actually let's not go for that physical first meet. Let's have a Zoom call and let's work out how do we bring in connection and intimacy whilst we're on Zoom? And how does that feel? And he's actually feeling super nervous about the idea of being on Zoom. Almost, he says, it's even more intense, but only if you let it. If you communicate first, all of that stuff that's coming up in a light-hearted way to the receiver, they're either going to meet you and open up to that and meet you with their own stuff, or they will run away. Well, run away, because you're not quite right for me, therefore. Don't be afraid of losing the people that actually are not for you, but gaining those that are by allowing them the space to hear you, feel you, and do the same. I think, and lastly, I mean, there's so many ways I can answer this, and I do find it limiting just doing it like this. But lastly, what comes to me instantly is how I'm curious about how much experience have you got with going along to smaller conscious events and activities and spaces. I know for us, we find going to big festivals, for example, just too much. But next weekend, we're going to a very small, very intimate festival. And of course, when we get there, we need to assess the whole layout and we need to look and feel and give ourselves time to ground and to do our breath work. And we don't really know very many people. So we've also got to make some social effort. So we're going ready and prepared. The day before, we will make sure that we have had a calming day, etc. And we will make sure that we go to the things during the festival that are things that open us and expand us. And do you know what? If we go to something that challenges us, that's okay too, as long as we plan in to have recovery, which we have. We have got recovery time. So what I mean by this is we are in full control of our own lives. We are in full control of looking after ourselves before something, during something, and after something. It's about practicing speaking up. It's about knowing ourselves deeply and intimately. It's about leading our life with our needs first. I need this to be in place for me to be okay. And then going into the desires, and then going into the realities, and really then taking self-accountability and being able to manage it really well, knowing that we have got the aftercare time in too. But often these smaller conscious spaces where I would say there isn't drugs and alcohol, or certainly no alcohol, and people have signed up normally with more awareness of each other and of themselves. Of course, we're all on a spectrum of that, but normally there is a ground level of self-awareness that means that you can approach those spaces with a lot more trust, I would hope. And I would also hope that these are spaces where you can communicate more readily and easily and freely who you are and what you need and what's going on for you right now. So we have got safe spaces like that. Come and join our nourishment community, or join in with what's local to you. There will be things out there. And if we can help in any way, shape or form, get in touch.